10864. Station's your final time cue will be with 15 seconds until airtime. Mark, 15 seconds until airtime.
Oregon is going to the Final Four.
The following is a Learfield presentation of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game.
Welcome to Duck Insider.
Man, it feels great to be a Duck.
Give it to me, baby. My house. I'm taking it there.
Their competitors, they'll want to put the O on.
Three, got it!
We're going to compete to a standard every day.
The Oregon standard.
Rebound. Up and in. 1 point more to go.
The opportunity to play, put Oregon on your chest, should mean a great deal to you.
Unloads on one into left field. Back toward the wall. Gone!
This program is staged to compete and to win championships.
Oregon wins!
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Better banking, local solutions. Live from the Country Financial Studio, here's Joey Mack.
Really slow news summer. It is great to be back. We have a lot to talk about today, and it's not just about Oregon football. Graeme Abel, Oregon soccer head coach, is going to be with us live in the Country Financial Studio because they're always the first sport to return to action. Duck Insider, I think, always sneaks up on people, myself included. And it's because we come back right around the time that Oregon football returns. The first day of fall camp is Friday. Oregon football's media day is scheduled for Wednesday. We've got Dan Lanning and a ton of student athletes for you that you will not only see on Duck Insider, but you'll hear from and you'll see a lot of interviews across various media outlets. That's coming up on Wednesday. And we just had the Pac-12 Football Conference's media day on Friday. We're going to hear from Dan Lanning talking about his team from Los Angeles a few days ago. And we also will jump into the schedule ahead for the show. And I should actually begin with what we missed over the summer because it was a relatively quick-moving news cycle, wasn't it? So I want to start with the World Championships because around this community, there was so much buildup, there was so much excitement in the Eugene area at Hayward Field, and man, what an awesome environment it was for the World Championships. And honestly, what a great World Championships it was. We saw some Ducks in action. I for one, was particularly excited. Just give you one example, when Jenna Prandini runs the third leg of that relay that ends up taking home a gold. That was pretty cool, right? We got to see some Ducks in action at the new Hayward Field, and Team USA with a record-setting performance. It was the first time the World Championships were ever on U.S. soil, and we got to see a pretty special few days, really special couple weeks at Hayward Field. So I hope that everybody enjoyed that. A bunch of Ducks have been named to the preseason All Pac-12 list as we take a look at the, at least, Oregon-specific football news. TJ Bass and Alex Forsyth are the only pair of teammates on the first-team offensive line, and the first-team defense includes defensive end Brandon Dorless and linebacker Noah Sewell. Byron Cardwell, Justin Flo, Camden Lewis, and Christian Gonzalez are on the second team, while Popo Amavai, Jamal Hill, Seven McGee, Ryan Walk, and Bennett Williams received honorable mention. How about the fact that Justin Flo has played about 5 quarters of football at the Division I level, and he's preseason all-conference? I think that just tells you how highly thought of a guy like Justin Flo is. I thought that was great, seeing that come out. More details on GoDucks.com. Before we get into the rest of football and hear a little bit from Coach Lanning, I do want to mention the PK tourney. The I was almost about to say the Pac-12, but the Phil Knight Invitational Tournament. We did the PK 80. Now it's going to be the PK 85. Oregon will play North Carolina on the women's basketball side of the bracket. The Ducks would then advance after that Thanksgiving game to the championship, which will take place on November 27th against either Iowa State or Michigan State. Now, of course, Ducks got to get a couple wins up there in Portland. And for the men's basketball side of things, the Ducks are looking forward to a really stacked field. And I hope that everybody comes out to the tournament in Portland. So that got announced a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to make sure that I mentioned it. We also are coming off of Saturday Night Live. Yeah, Saturday Night Live for Oregon football was going on Saturday. I think a lot of you probably saw some great things on social media from that. You got to love to see it. And today, we have a fun announcement for you with the Go Do Anything campaign. This is a really, really special, I don't even know what to call it. I mean, it's a special endeavor, I think. Celebrating Title IX, if you missed it heading into our summer break, the Ducks are celebrating the 50th anniversary of Title IX with the Go Do Anything campaign. And as part of that, Tinker Hatfield designed with Elizabeth Brock Jones and Kendall Bagby the Women in Flight Jordan 1. And you can bid on them as of today, actually. And all of the proceeds will directly benefit Women in Flight. GoDucks.com/WIF, Women in Flight, WIF Jordan 1. GoDucks.com/WIF Jordan 1. The bidding, if you're live with us in the 1 o'clock hour, is already up to $2,500, Scott says. Wow. All the proceeds will benefit Women in Flight from this auction, and the shoes are, well, they're everything that you would expect them to be with this Go Do Anything campaign. Now, that's a pretty cool endeavor. We're going to hear from Dan Lanning coming up. And, in fact, let's do that. From Pac-12 Media Day, just a few days ago, the first time that we've heard from Coach Lanning in a while, as the Ducks have been on the recruiting trail. The Ducks have been getting ready for fall camp. And, again, if you're just joining us, Wednesday is Oregon Football Media Day, and Friday is the beginning of fall camp. And Dan Lanning met with reporters, met with the media at Pac-12 Media Day on Friday.
First off, I just want to tell everyone how honored and excited I am to be sitting on the stage right now as the head football coach at Oregon. Obviously, extremely fortunate to have great leadership at our university with our athletic director, Rob Mullins, our president, Schill. Excited about the direction of our program and excited about being part of the fastest growing brand in college football. Since 2010, there's been 9 teams that have played for a national championship, and fortunate enough that Oregon's done that twice. Multiple conference championships have been won at this place, and obviously we had 2.57 million viewers tune in every single week to watch our games, which is top 10 in the nation and best in our conference, which is obviously exciting. We've continued to recruit at a really high level. Excited to continue to bring great recruits to our place, and we have an innovative approach in the way we do that. One thing that I will say about all that success, though, is that's past success. And this is the 2022 team. And we have to be focused on what we're going to do in the year 2022 as a team and as staff. In fact, each one of those experiences is totally unique and different to us. So moving forward, one thing that's certainly changed in this offseason for us is our team has a void. We're missing a brother in Spencer Webb, who we lost in a tragic accident. We've spent a lot of time together as a family and mourned his loss, and it's something that you certainly cannot replace. But time with the heart, it only grows fonder, and we want to live. I talk to our players about that moment. And Spencer, on your tombstone, there's a day when you were born, there's a day, when you pass. But what made Spencer special is how he lived that dash in between those two numbers. So we want to live and create a dash that's meaningful, and I think our Get Real sessions have been really beneficial to our team. We finished off our summer workouts with a climb up Spencer's Butte, which will be an annual tradition to honor him. And our theme this season as we move forward, as we honor Spencer, is really growth. I had the conversation with our team about the bamboo plant and how over time you'll water that plant every single day. And at times you don't see the growth. It hasn't come out of the ground. But at some point, that plant breaks ground and it grows exponentially. And I'm excited to see that investment into our team. I'm excited to see us continue to, build and, continue to grow in that effort as we focus on the process and the investment in our players. The expectations of our team, really outside of our room, it doesn't matter. We're focused on the opinions of the people in our program and collecting 24-hour wins with that growth mindset. I also want to extend an extreme gratitude to our players in our program. It's been a pleasure to work with those guys day in and day out. They're true professionals. They love each other. We're focused on, we talk about it a lot, we call it power of unit and connection. That's been a big piece for us. Fortunately, I have the best staff in the nation. I feel really confident in that and was able to go collect some great players. I'm proud of the 2 players I was actually able to bring on this trip. Alex Forsyth, he's a seasoned veteran. Both these guys come here today as graduates, college graduates working on their second degrees, which is exciting for me. And obviously we talk about our investment in education, but those guys are great representation of our program. Alex has been here before, so I was able to lean on him to see what this day would look like. I'm really proud of DJ Johnson and the progress he's had this spring and the job he's done. So thrilled to have those guys represent our program here today. All that being said, I certainly couldn't pass the opportunity to recognize our first game, get to play a really familiar opponent in Georgia in a neutral site game in Atlanta. Certainly excited about going back and seeing some familiar faces with the goal of going there and getting to compete against, a mentor and a friend in Kirby Smart.
You spoke to growth there a moment ago. I guess just what kind of growth have you seen at the quarterback position this offseason, and how far into fall will it be a competition? Do you have a deadline of when you'd like to make a decision?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Just at the end of the day, you want to know you have quarterbacks in your program you think you can win with. And I think we have multiple guys that can do that, with Bo, Ty, and Jay. Have all been extreme competitors, but probably more than anything, I've been excited with their passion to improve, to be elite, to be a special player, you have to go above and beyond. And all of those guys have, really contributed in the success of what work they did this summer when people weren't watching, and what it looked like when there weren't people standing out there on the field assessing their efforts. Those guys have put in a lot of extra work.
To follow up on what you were talking about with the season opener going against your former team, I mean, are all the players fired up? It's not often, teams get to open up against the reigning national champs. And, what's the emotions and vibe around the team? Can you explain that?
Yeah, honestly, we haven't spent a ton of focus on game one. I know our players are certainly excited to be on a national stage early and get to play, obviously, an elite opponent in Georgia that we're really familiar with. But guess what? They're also familiar with me. But that being said, we're really focused on right now. And you can't play game one until you have practice one, right? So that's our next approach.
And to follow up on that, just with the Pac-12 against the SEC, do you think that this game is so important for, the Pac-12 overall, the national, perspective, for you guys to go out and really put on a show and show what the Pac-12 is all about? And with the spring forward, your team to, run the table?
Our goal is to win every single game at the University of Oregon. So certainly it's an important game, just like every game's important. And then after that game, the next game will be the next most important game. So we're going to focus on that. Oregon, like I said, is a national brand, and it's fun to be in a place where you get to play premier opponents like Georgia.
Given the changes that are happening within the conference, within the sport itself, NIL, transfers, super conferences, conference realignment, all of that stuff, how do you feel about just the direction that the sport is headed?
Say that last part again, please.
How do you feel about the direction that the sport is headed overall?
Yeah, it seems to be ever-changing, doesn't it? I've been asked a couple times, what's it like being a first-year head coach, in this environment? And the one thing I'll say is it's probably pretty similar to being a 15-year head coach in this environment, because everything's different. It continues to change. I think what we do at the University of Oregon is we continue to put the focus of the players first. And I certainly want to see our players maximize their opportunities, whether that be through name, image, likeness. I think we're positioned really well to be successful there. But we want to play elite competition. I trust George and our leadership in conference to continue to point us in the right direction there. But it's a fun, ever-changing day, and you always have to pay attention, and there's usually a headline when you wake up in the morning. So fun to adapt and be on your toes, and certainly different to coach in.
Dan, speaking to that point, how many conversations or how have you addressed the conference realignment stuff with USC and UCLA leaving, and how often does that come up on the recruiting trail, and is that difficult to navigate at all?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a conversation, and like I said, I trust our leadership to be positioned for success. Oregon's always been, a premier team in college football, and I think we'll continue to be. Obviously, our fans are extremely passionate. Having being a top 10 team when it comes to views in homes this past year, and the ability to compete for championships year in and year out with, coaching changes and different things, that's still allowed Oregon to be at the forefront of competition. And that'll continue to be the case with our support outside of just the university, but also within the university.
In regards to, obviously you spent a lot of time at Georgia. In Oregon, for years they chased USC, and obviously Georgia chased Alabama. But now that Oregon has kind of taken that next step, do you feel like they're still chasing, let's say, the ghost of USC's past success, or do you feel like Georgia, they've already kind of crossed that barrier and they're really just chasing their own shadow?
Yeah, we're not chasing anybody. We're trying to maximize ourselves. We're going to be the best team that we can possibly be in the year 2022. And our goal, like I said, is to win every single game. That's our goal. And we have the team and the ability to do it. Time will tell if we're able to, fill that void and do those things that are necessary to be successful.
And with all the success that Oregon has had taking top California talent, you get a guy like Justin Flo, the best linebackers to come out of Cali. How do you, and you had, just a plethora of guys, how do you feel like that are they ready to take that next step? Do you feel like you have so much depth that it kind of could be anyone?
Can kind of what?
As far as like the talent, the guys that you have coming in from Cali, top flight talent, do you feel like it's just anyone's game, or do you feel like certain people are kind of differentiating themselves?
No, ultimately we want to recruit the best talent in the nation, right? And obviously California is an important piece for us. It still is amazing to me how many kids I'll talk to. And the first time I talk to them, they tell me how Oregon has always been their dream school, right? This place is, like I said, a national brand. We're going to continue to go recruit nationally, but we want to win on the West Coast and keep the best players on the West Coast as well. And certainly we'll continue to recruit California. I'm excited about the guys we have on our program already and our roster already for their continued success and have high expectations for them.
And lastly, what's the biggest thing you took away from finally beating Alabama, and what's something that you've been hammering home to your players?
Obviously I've had great experience in the last year and the last several years of my coaching career, but I spend very little time talking about the past. I'm really focused on the future. The one thing I'll say about that game and the national championship game is our ability to adapt and change. You have to go back, and when you lose to an opponent, it gives you an opportunity to really reassess yourself. When I go back and talk about our theme for this season being growth, I think that's a big part of it. Being a growth mindset means you have to learn from successes and failures, right? And we talked about it the program I was at before. We'd go to the doctor after a win on Monday morning. We're going to do the same thing here at Oregon. We got to figure out what we can get better at, and hopefully you go to the doctor before you get sick. And that's certainly the goal for us.
Dan Lanning, the Oregon football head coach, meeting with the media as part of the Pac-12 Media Day on Friday. Every time we talk with one of our coaches, it's brought to you by the Willamette Valley Cancer Institute and Research Center. Fight like a duck with exceptional cancer care close to home. Well, you heard Coach mention at the start of his interview, unfortunately, the loss of Spencer Webb. A few weeks ago, the Ducks lost one of our own. Spencer Webb tragically passed away a few weeks ago, and I think it's safe to say that this season, a lot of Ducks will be thinking about Spencer Webb. Back after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear gas prices, Toyota is the #1 retail brand for electrified vehicles for 22 years. That says it all. Toyota hybrids. Find yours at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer estimate CY 2000 through 2021 sales.
Hey Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
Dear gas prices, Toyota is the #1 retail brand for electrified vehicles for 22 years. That says it all. Toyota hybrids. Find yours at Toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer estimate CY 2000 through 2021 sales.
Your daily dose of Oregon athletics. This is Duck Insider from Learfield.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Back inside the Country Financial Studio, it's Duck Insider presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Glad to be back with you, hearing from Dan Lanning from Pac-12 Media Day. On Wednesday, the Ducks will have their Media Day here at the Autzen Complex. We'll have tons of interviews for you over the course of that day, both on Duck Insider, the Go Ducks YouTube channel. We'll have all of it covered. I'm going to hear from a lot of Ducks getting ready for the season opener, which, again, fall camp begins on Friday. Whew! It's going to be here before we know it. Much like the first Oregon Athletics sporting event of the year, we're just a couple weeks away from the start of Oregon soccer season. Their head coach, Graeme Abel, is going to join us coming up later on the show today. Let's hear part two. Dan Lanning, the Oregon football head coach, meeting with the media on Friday.
You guys have added a number of cornerbacks from your 2022 signing class, Kamari Terrell, Jalil Tucker, to name a few. What have you seen from those guys since they arrived in the summer, and how do you think they can help your cornerback group going into this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that you'll notice about all those guys that we added in that room this year is they all have speed, right? They all have speed and they have length and size, which, you know, to me, in my experience, those are really dominating attributes to successful, you know, corners. And if you have speed, you can make up for a lot of mistakes. I'm excited about those guys' work ethic. You know, I think it's still early. There's a learning curve there, and not being able to go through all the spring with each of them makes it a little bit tougher, certainly. But it's a group that wants to be great. I have a lot of faith in their position coach, Demetrius Martin. He's done a great job, had a lot of success, and then our defensive staff to get those guys prepared and ready to roll.
And this is a big season for a number of reasons. You're getting your start as a head coach, as we all know. But also, I think it's big because of where Oregon's at with their championship window and, you know, the timing of your arrival. What will success look like for you and the Oregon Ducks in 2022?
Yeah, I think time will tell. You know, ultimately, I would tell you again, we need to win every single game we're supposed to win, but our goal is to win every one of them. And, I feel like we have the talent to be competitive in the games that we're going to play in. Doesn't mean we have to play our best game every single week, but we want to improve. I want to see measured growth. So what success look like for us? Are we making the same mistakes in week 10 that we make in week 1? Then I'd say no, right? If we're able to grow as a team and continue to develop and have that same mindset, I think that approach will be really, you know, special for us.
You have a lot of versatile players on your defense. You know, have DJ Johnson here. Triquez Bridges is a guy that comes to mind. Jeffrey Bassa. When you're kind of getting the lay of the land of your defense, how do you think that versatility will really be able to help you?
Yeah, I believe in position versatility, and I believe in figuring out ways to have your best 11 players on the field. You know, another mantra of mine is always, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And if we have players that are good enough, we want to find a role for them on our team. Want to be able to have them contribute to our success. So when you have guys that can learn multiple positions, when you have guys that can move around and are smart and intelligent, at the end of the day, it only benefits your team whenever an injury occurs or a certain pressure package or personnel grouping can be changed to adapt to our strengths.
To the injury front, Justin Flo, Brandon Dorlus, Popo Amavai were all limited or out for most of spring. Do you have any updates on those three?
Yeah, I won't spend a lot of time talking about injuries, but I will say all those guys are doing really well this summer, and we definitely think they're going to be a big part of what we're doing this season.
And the last one from me is just on the transfer portal. Since we spoke last, additions of a couple offensive guys, Caleb Chapman and Bucky Irving. Can you speak to what those guys provide and maybe how much you expect they could impact this year's team?
Yeah, you know, our focus obviously in the portal was to find guys that can make our program better. and enhance our program, but also, marry that with the culture that we're instilling right now in our program, the investment in our culture. So those guys have been, phenomenal additions. They have great experience, in college football games. It's good to be able to lean on guys that have firsthand experience in games, and they're working really hard this summer. So I think we have 54 newcomers to our program this year. So obviously there's a returning roster of some great talent, but we also have some great additions like those guys.
You were talking about speed, and you're just coming from the SEC, and there's this saying, maybe it's a myth, that there's more speed in the SEC. So what's your assessment about that?
I can't speak to it, not playing in this conference right now, but I know that speed wins football games. And I know, we use GPS units every single day in practice and every workout, and we have some pretty good speeds out there. So I would say that we got some fast guys on our team, and that's something I'm excited about. I'm hoping the people we play don't have as many fast guys as us.
You got to kind of pick your own staff as the head coach of Oregon. What made Kenny Dillingham the guy as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach to lead the Bo Nixes, the Ty Thompsons, and the rest of your quarterback room?
Yeah, Kenny's a guy I obviously have, a ton of respect for. We've been around each other since Arizona State. We worked together at Memphis. He's a guy I've talked ball with every offseason. We see the game very similar. Lee's a teacher. He's a guy that came up from grassroots, but obviously is extremely intelligent and sees the game in a unique way. So really thrilled to bring him, aboard. There's a lot of people that obviously want to be a part of our program, but Kenny's the guy that made sense when it came to QB development and seeing the game the way I saw the game and having a system. I think those things really fit. So excited about the direction of our offense and the job he's done with our offensive staff. Obviously, there's some great pieces to that puzzle on that offensive staff with him, with Junior Adams, Drew Maringer, Carlos Lachlan, Adrian Clem, a lot of great experience on that side of the ball. It's going to help us be dynamic.
Coach, when we were at this point about a year ago heading into fall camp in Eugene, the previous coaching staff was talking about getting to a dependable two deep. Obviously you're familiar with the roster now. What's that process look like for you now, getting to a dependable two deep across the board?
Yeah, in the spring, obviously we were down some guys. We had some injuries, so we didn't get to see every single player on our roster, really go through the spring and compete. And like I said, we have 54 newcomers, so some of those guys were able to practice with us and some weren't. That being said, that's our job as coaches, right? We're tasked with getting our guys ready to play and making sure that we ask them to incorporate systems that they can execute. So I think we have, like I said, I feel strongly that we have the roster to be effective. Obviously, any team that can be affected by injuries, we have to be able to adapt and put a great product out there on the field. And I think we're close to having, a good roster for that.
Justin Flo was a preseason all-conference guy. Sort of speaks to just how much potential he seems to have. As you look at him, how do you see him fitting into your defense, and what makes him special?
Justin was another guy that I actually recruited while I was at Georgia, and obviously he's a dynamic athlete. He's a really talented player, a specimen, and I think at this point he's played 5 quarters. So I think Justin would tell you, hey, there's high expectations, and he hasn't been able to, execute the level he wants to yet because of injury. So, I have great belief in Justin as well as, all of our linebackers on our roster. We got a great group there, and that's something I have, good experience with. But I'm excited to see him to continue to develop. I'm glad that he's healthy and ready to go perform.
Obviously, kids come to schools for all different reasons: coaches, facilities, the prestige of the program, which Oregon does have on a national level. They also come for the reputation of the conference, and I'm curious if you're concerned about the message that coaches will have to, I guess, maybe change back to the Pac-12 with UCLA and USC leaving in a couple of years.
Yeah, I have zero concerns, from that angle and that front, just because I know how strong our brand and our product is, and I share a vision that our leadership in the conference and our school shares. We're, like I've said, to start, Oregon's a brand that is national, and we're going to play premier programs year in and year out. There's some great storied history, obviously, in this conference, and I'm excited about that as that continues forward. The conference champions, the last 4 years are still in this conference, and that's something that I'm excited to see and compete against, especially for the next 2 years. I think the biggest way you control that narrative is you go and win games, and that's certainly our job at Oregon.
Could you see the SEC and the Big Ten using this type of their super conferences against the Pac-12 schools, Pac-10 schools, in terms of recruiting?
Yeah, and ultimately, I could certainly see people using that, but that doesn't mean it's going to be effective, right? Because, again, as I said, Oregon's a brand that can stand alone, and it's a team that's competed for championships in the last 12 years. There's only, 8 other teams that can say that. So feel really confident in our product. We're a brand that's built and a school that's been built on innovation. We'll continue to be cutting edge, and those are all the reasons I came here in the first place.
How would you describe the last 7 months as a recruiter now that you are a head coach?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It's been a lot of fun. It's fun piecing together the talent, and obviously we can recruit at a really high level, but it's also about bringing in coaches that are about relationships and development. And I feel really strongly we brought in a great coaching staff that is built on relationships, not just effort. Not just a sales pitch. That's not our approach. It's built on real relationships. And when you have that, I think you can recruit at a high level. Certainly there's a lot of pieces that go into being a head coach, and you wear a lot of hats. But when you have a great team around you, it gives you a chance to be successful.
A lot of good stuff from Dan Lanning, the Oregon football head coach, meeting with the media. That was from the Pac-12's media day, which was, it feels like a long time ago, but that was actually just Friday, if you can believe it. They did it all in one day. Heard from a lot of student athletes. DJ Johnson and Alex Forsyth were the two, defense and offense, that represented the Ducks over the course of Pac-12 Media Day, and then we've got the full Oregon Football Media Day coming up on Wednesday. We're going to get a timeout when we come back here a little bit from Commissioner Kliavkoff. We also have Graeme Abel, Oregon soccer head coach, joining us. Coming up, stick with us, Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, our all-inclusive event pricing allows us to take care of all of the details while you enjoy your event. Our wedding garden, expansive grounds, ballroom, and meeting rooms can accommodate any size event and come complete with full catering and service staff. From weddings to business and social events, Shadow Hills offers the benefits of a resort atmosphere and the peace of a country setting just minutes from downtown Eugene. For more details, call us today or go to shadowhillsevents.com.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union, onpointcu.com. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
You're listening to Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Okay, forest animals, kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow, have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. River, how's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man.
I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. Okay. Squirrel.
The forest has been preparing just for you. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Back on Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Joey Mack here with you inside the Country Financial Studio. Practice begins on Friday. But, of course, there's been a lot going on around college athletics. Everyone has been keeping up with the changes in the sport. You can't go a day without seeing a new headline around college athletics these days. And as you can imagine, there were a lot of questions about a lot of topics with Commissioner Kliavkoff. George Kliavkoff met with the media as part of a Q&A session, as did Stanford Athletic Director Bernard Muir and Merton Hanks, who is the Associate Commissioner in charge of football. Pac-12, like a lot of conferences, getting ready for a new football season. Part one of the Q&A format from Friday's Media Day with those three.
George, when
you meet in the CFP management meetings in the months ahead. How do you intend to convey to Kevin Warren and Greg Sankey specifically that it's in the best interest of the Big Ten and the SEC to continue to allow the Pac-10 access to the CFP at all and any revenue split at all post-2026?
No one has ever argued that the remaining 10 members of the Pac-12 don't deserve to be in the CFP. I'm not going to distinguish that question, James.
Barring federal legislation, how do you and the other conferences regulate NIL without inviting antitrust lawsuits?
Well, antitrust is the reason why the current NCAA rules are not being enforced, and the risk of antitrust diminishes when you have a smaller number of conferences, smaller number of schools instituting rules and enforcing those rules. That's why I'm calling for the 10 CFP conferences, the 10 BCS conferences to focus our attention as opposed to waiting for the NCAA. The clear line for me should be that boosters should not be able to interact with high school students before they've committed. Coaches should be able to say to a recruit that historically kids who have come here and played that position at that level have enjoyed this kind of NIL, but you can't negotiate the NIL before the kid is committed. That would be a good bright line rule that I think would be easier to implement.
Some of the media days before yours, the new Big 12 commissioner said they were open for business in terms of expansion. Kevin Warren at Big 10 this week saying not ruling out future expansion. What gives you confidence that the 10 remaining schools are going to stay in this conference?
Yeah, we've had 2 board meetings a week for the last 4 weeks, and looking my colleagues in the eye and understanding their commitment and that their first priority is making sure that the Pac-12 survives and thrives and grows and is successful. They're committed to the conference, and I think the best thing to do is to ask them about it. And with respect to the Big 12 being open for business, I appreciate that. We haven't decided if we're going shopping there yet or not.
How much consideration has been put into merging with the Mountain West or even adding regional teams that have been successful against the Pac-12?
We've not dug into merging with the Mountain West. That's not one of the options we've looked at.
Why did it take so long for the Pac-12 in particular to start recognizing NIL?
I believe we were the first conference to recognize NIL, and we proposed legislation before anyone else.
But before the legislation, why did it take so long, regardless of the conference, for college athletics to recognize the NIL for student athletes?
I wasn't here. I can't speak for college athletics before a year ago.
I mean, I've been here in this league for a decade now, as of this week. I think prior to that, college sport was just really concerned about what we're seeing here, boosters, others getting involved too early, and it becoming an inducement to get to a particular school. This has been grounded in education for many years, and it still should be. There's a place for that. And unfortunately, maybe 20 years ago, we should have seen this coming and made these adjustments, and we just didn't get to it until of late.
Could you speak to the lack of collegiality in general among your peers and within your room and with any room in college athletics? Why should anyone trust anyone given the last few years?
Yeah, up until very, very recently, I thought the discussions were very collegial. I think in the last month that has changed, unfortunately. I hope that we regain that collegiality because I actually think that's the way that you solve problems. I know I'm going to put myself out there to be as embracive and inclusive of my colleagues as I can be to try and move us forward. I think it's unfortunate if we go the other direction.
Have you guys discussed at all the 2 state schools and the issue with the travel ban, particularly UCLA and Cal regarding other states? Is the conference going to help out, or is this something where the schools alone are going to have to kind of fund the money to do these out-of-state trips to certain states?
Well, it's part of the discussion. I mean, it's part of a much broader discussion, particularly about UCLA's decision. I think, as everybody knows, there's a hearing of the regents on October 17th where UCLA will have to defend their decision to leave the Pac-12. Everything is wrapped up in that, and the travel ban will certainly be part of what's discussed.
In regards to USC and UCLA leaving, how concerned are the other teams in regards to the recruiting pie that is California?
I can tell you my observation from the conference level, and maybe Bernard can chime in. And Vern, at some point, will get a question about football. So my impression with respect to recruiting is that for UCLA and USC, it's probably going to be neutral with respect to football. They'll probably lose some people who don't want to play across the country, and they'll probably pick up some people who want to play in the Big Ten. From feedback I've gotten from decisions that recruits have already made and decisions that recruits have said to coaches of the 10 remaining schools, that actually we think the 10 remaining schools are going to significantly benefit in recruiting from UCLA and USC's decision in every sport other than football.
Part of the Q&A, Commissioner Kliavkoff talking there about a bunch of different topics. Of course, we're all going to be following it. And, at this rate, I'm ready to play some sporting events. And we're going to do that in 12 days. Graeme Abel, Oregon soccer head coach, is here in the Country Financial studio. Coach, first of all, it's great to see you. And so you sat down while we were in the middle of our pre-recorded segment there. 12 days, Coach.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'll tell you in about a week's time. So.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Coach going to catch his breath. We're going to get a quick timeout. Come back. Our first live interview of the new season. Back after this on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear gas prices, Toyota is the #1 retail brand for electrified vehicles for 22 years. That says it all. Toyota hybrids. Find yours at toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer estimates, CY 2000 through 2021 sales.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union, onpointcu.com. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
Dear gas prices, Toyota is the #1 retail brand for electrified vehicles for 22 years. That says it all. Toyota hybrids. Find yours at toyota.com. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer estimates, CY 2000 through 2021 sales.
This is Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're going to go out there and be an all-star caregiver. Cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You got to dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments, because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Show the world that you're tougher than tough.
Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
To some, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much, but that's not true. They're testing out vowels and consonants and trying different sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on meaning, especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Learn more at autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Back on Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Joey Mack in the Country Financial studio. He's Graeme Abel, Oregon soccer head coach. Made the long walk across the hall. I'm glad that you're the first guest. It feels like the right way to kick things off on the show.
Neighbors
so
and all that
good
stuff.
to see you.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been good to see you throughout the summer. So update fans, where are you at? Because the season, like we talked about,
Yeah.
at Corbin, 12 days from today.
Yeah, so everyone's back. Yeah, it's getting ready to go. I mean, first practice in the morning. We'll be here, a couple of days here in practice, and then we'll head out to the coast and do 3 days out there, 3.5 days out there, take the team out there. We'll train out there for a few days and, let the team hang together, start to bond all those different pieces. So, no, it's rolling around quick here.
Is this like soccer on the beach type training? Because that feels like rolled ankles.
Old school, would you be up and down the sand dunes and all that stuff?
Yeah, sure.
But that's the old. Well, the old school, they used to sew like sandbags into sweatshirts and make them do that. But you get fired if you do that these days. So,
right, for sure.
You got to be smart about things.
I mean, and I've played my fair share of soccer on the beach, and if you're not on that wet sand, and you're like in
Remember, if you travel to some of those countries like Brazil and Italy where they're playing on the beach, those guys play in that regular sand. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Probably stronger toes, stronger ankles.
Yeah, definitely a few broken toes in there for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, since we last talked on the show, it was part of your spring season.
Yep.
Take us back in time, if you could. Did you get out of the spring season what you wanted? Just update fans a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we went overly healthy coming through the spring. We had little knocks here and there, but we got a lot of development out of it for sure. And then, once we were able to close things down and get everyone in a good place going into the summer, so it was a solid spring.
What's the summer in a perfect world? What do you want the summer to look like for your student athletes?
In a perfect world, we get to work with them. They want to work with us. They do. We obviously don't have that in place right now like other sports do. So I think the big piece is, they take some time off. We're different with us being a quarter system school, that we go right up there up until June, so that they take 3-4 weeks where they can fully recharge, and then they start to gradually bring themselves back in physically, and so if they're able to do that, they leave us in a really good place. We left in a really good place physically. The kids worked so hard over the spring with regards to that piece, and so as they start to bring themselves back on board in July, some of them have been here, some have been training in different environments. Then once they hit this, the date today, then they should be in a really good place.
You guys also got the chance to see for the first time in this program's history 2 professionals playing against each other on different teams just a few months ago. How cool was that?
It was awesome. For our program, especially down the road in Portland, it was great. So it was a good game. The Thorns won, so it was a
got to root for the hometown team,
Yeah, so it was obviously Coach Shaw, so I was eyes were on her and stuff. So but no, she's been doing well. She's been getting minutes and stuff at Kansas, and Leah Freeman went out there and trained with them as well. So no, we're proud of her and looking forward to getting more players in the pros.
Talking about Leah, she had a chance to do some pretty cool stuff over the course of this summer, didn't she?
Yeah,
your goalkeeper.
She was with the 20s and stuff like that, with the 20s national team, and yeah, she's been out in Kansas training with those guys, and Edie French was one that I coached with the national team, and so that's a good mentor for her as she starts to look forward, past her time here at Oregon as a pro, and that starts to prepare her for that piece as well.
You've got so much experience in the international game as a coach and as an assistant for the U.S. women's national team. Just what does that experience do for you playing in the different levels as you play for the U20, U18, whatever age group may be? How valuable is that experience for a collegiate athlete?
It is. I mean, it's different, and that's the piece with the travel and the different styles of soccer that you play against. If you think about the collegiate game in America, it's a lot of transition involved. The game gets stretched real quick. International games probably a little bit more compact. You have to be a little bit more patient with regards to things. Some of the international players, they're so savvy in terms of how they do things. They're maybe not as athletic as some of the Americans, but they're a little bit more savvy in terms of how they do things. I think any American goalkeeper should go abroad right away and play. I don't think they should play in the U.S. right away. I think just the experience that they get and the maturity that they get from they gain from being abroad, I think that's a benefit for them.
That's interesting. Graeme Abel, Oregon soccer head coach, joining us. So tell us about the roster coming in now that you're getting ready for your first matchups. A little team bonding, and you got some new faces. You got a bond.
11 of them coming in. So we're super excited about that. 28 in the roster, which is probably the biggest roster that I've had since we've been here. 4 of them are goalkeepers, so that gives us a ton of depth there as well.
You always need it.
Yeah, it'll be a really, really good training group. Really excited to have them in, and we get depth across the entire roster, which is something we've probably not had since I've been here, just with all the different positions. So looking forward to making that competitive in practice, and having 2 sets of 11 players to be able to play against each other in practice. So yeah, really excited to get going.
So you take fans inside the process with how college athletics has changed too, because you guys had some transfer portal action on both sides, right? So just, what's that like right now? Like, how do you describe that for fans?
You go window shopping every morning, basically. Yeah. So that's what you go do, and it's you've got to be on top of things. We don't have we're not like other sports where we have a huge 15 people on our staff that can check things. So Rachel each morning, afternoon and evening, will jump on the portal, check things out, and I think it gives us a nice advantage of being able to pick up grad transfers. They're older, typically they're 21, 22 when they come into us, and so having that maturity on the roster right away, especially someone that's played 3 or 4 years in college already, around different conferences and against different opponents, different head coaches, they bring something a little bit different to the program, and so it's really unique.
And by my count, you've got at least 4 athletes that are a 5th year or older. I don't think I'm missing anybody if I did my math right this morning. How valuable is that too? Because it is kind of unique, right? With COVID and the way it's changed roster management for at least the next few years. I mean, what's that like to have that experience?
It's awesome. I mean, if you think about all the things that they've learned and they've gone through, and there's so many different pieces, whether it's coaching changes, whether it's won championships at other schools, whether it's experience in different conferences, and so there's all different pieces that they bring into it. The experiences that they bring from those other schools, or the experiences they've had at your school as well. We do something like, and I learned this from it was a Navy SEAL way back in the day when I did some team bonding with a different team. It was about sharing your scars, and it was basically giving other people your experiences, and those older players can do that, especially to our younger players as well. Hey, I did it this way, and if you do it that way, that it was a mistake for me. How about you do it this way? And it's giving them those shortcuts so they don't fall into the same holes.
2 6th years on the roster, for example, right? I mean, that's just that says something about that experience. So what's next? So you guys get ready, and then it gets on you quick, right? I mean, so what are your focuses when you're going through bonding out on the coast, but it kind of comes at you fast? What do you want your team to be working on?
We want to get as many of our roles and responsibilities put in place and our rules in place right away with regards to the on-the-field things. Define the standards pretty quickly. All of our returners understand the standards that we have within the program. Anyone that's new joining the program, hey, this is our standard. We don't drop below it. The standard only goes up. And so it's defining those really, really quickly. And then the combination of the off-the-field meetings and all those different pieces as well. And try not to overload with information. What things do we need to put in place right away to be successful as quick as possible, and start to layer other pieces in as we go through as well.
We'll talk about the season ahead of the schedule a little bit more next week, because we're going to be doing a preview of an opponent next week.
We are, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So every Monday, Graeme Abel is going to be joining us, and then we'll be going through the entire season. I always appreciate you taking the time, Coach. Just thanks for always making the long trek. I know it's
anytime. Well, it might be a bit longer this season, just with me being over at Pape more. So
that's true.
Yeah, so I'll have to actually get in my car to get over here.
Well,
but that is okay. Anything for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We might make a mobile interview one of these days.
You should come up. We got the brand new surface out there.
How is it? Are you loving it?
Unbelievable.
I should ask you about that. See, this is why we do the wrap up at the end. New turf at Pape Field.
We're so fortunate that Lisa and Rob and all the people over at the DAF were able to get that turned around for us so quickly, and it's to have a state-of-the-art surface like that is phenomenal. And we're redoing the locker room, all those different pieces. So it's been a busy summer with regards to that as well. But so grateful to everyone that's been involved with regards to that.
So are you curious, like, how it plays over a season? Like, does it change much? When do you kind of feel like you have that home field advantage?
Well, we've had camps and stuff on it already, just to kind of compact it down, and the maintenance guys have been brushing it and things like that. So as we get through pre-season here, hopefully we'll start to get a good feel for what the new surface is like, because it's so different than the old one. I know it's similar to Otson and similar to the Mo, so we trained on Otson a lot in the spring, so looking forward to getting on the new surface.
Graeme Abel, Oregon soccer head coach. He'll be with us next Monday. Safe travels out to the coast.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great trip. Lincoln City is my beach town, so I'm familiar.
Sunscreen for me.
That's right. All the sunscreen.
Yeah,
that's right. When we come back, we've got a show to wrap up. Before you know it, look at that. The show's almost over. Back after this on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
From the weight room to the classroom, on the field and off it, On Point proudly supports University of Oregon athletics because student athletes do so much more than bring us pride on game day. They bring our entire community together in Eugene and all across Oregon. So whether you're watching the game in the stadium, at home, or at your favorite local business, their success makes all of us stronger. On Point Community Credit Union, onpointcu.com. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, our all-inclusive event pricing allows us to take care of all of the details while you enjoy your event. Our wedding garden, expansive grounds, ballroom, and meeting rooms can accommodate any size event and come complete with full catering and service staff. From weddings to business and social events, Shadow Hills offers the benefits of a resort atmosphere and the peace of a country setting just minutes from downtown Eugene. For more details, call us today or go to shadowhillsevents.com.
More Duck Insider coming up on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
It's 4 a.m., Monday, and you're literally sucking baby snot through a tube because she's congested. Man, that's love. And if you love her that much, love her enough to make sure she's buckled in the right car seat. To make sure your child's in the right seat for their age and size, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
Back inside the Country Financial Studio, it's Duck Insider, presented by On Point Community Credit Union. Hey, that was a lot of fun catching up with Graeme Abel. Looking forward to doing that every Monday. But I should say, this might be the last time you see me. I have no idea. We are 1,000% on Baby Mac watch. My phone could be going off right now, and it could be my wife saying, hey, you got to get off the air. We're out of here. And if that's the case, everybody, Jordan Brenner is here. The man is back. The arm is ready. He's loose. He's ready and waiting in the bullpen. So, you know, he might be coming in, and I don't think it's pinch hitting. I think you're coming out of the bullpen, right? Like, you've got to pitch some sustained innings for us here. This isn't pinch hitting. Jerry Allen, you'll hear from him a lot as well. So yeah, full disclosure, it could be 12:30, and I could be like, we're out, and Jordan's here. So we'll see what happens, everybody. I might see you tomorrow. I might not. And if I don't see you tomorrow, now you know why. It's up to Scott Phillips to keep us on the rails, which means we are going to have a long week. Long week. Lisa Peterson joins somebody on the show tomorrow. See ya.
When might you be buzzed? When you suddenly love everything.
You guys! I love this song! I love these nachos. I love our kickball league. Ugh! I love this guy. What's your name? You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.